bring this on in here. All right. So thanks so much for attending today. At the end of all of our webinars, we have a survey that we offer, and we love to get your feedback. And the result of some of that survey feedback was that a lot of people wanted to see more tools in the Snagit Editor and how they worked. So that is why we have the session today. So we're going to talk about 10 super helpful tools that are within Snagit. Hopefully, no matter where you're at, whether you're a brand new user of Snagit or you've been using it for years, hopefully you'll be able to take away a few tools that you can use, or maybe different ways to use the tools than what you've been using. So yeah, I'm super excited to show you some of my favorite tools in the Snagit Editor. All right, so often we think about Snagit for taking these captures, but there's so much more to it in our Snagit Editor. So as Ryan mentioned, today I'll be using Snagit 2021 on a Windows machine. I am working from home, so sorry, it sounds like my neighbor's starting to mow their lawn. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but hopefully that isn't too loud in the background there. If you have a Mac or an older version of Snagit, no problem. A lot of these you'll be able to follow along with, and it should look pretty similar on your on whichever version of Snagit you are using. All right, so to get started, before we get to the tools, we do need to take a capture so we can show you some of those tools. I'm going to turn my camera off just so that I don't cover up anything on the screen that we're demoing today. So just 1 second here. All right. So here we have our capture window, and we're going to take a capture to get started. So I'm going to open up a website and take a quick capture that I can then use these tools on. So to do that, I'm going to be capturing a scrolling window. I want more than just what is on my screen right here. So I'm going to use the Panoramic Capture option. So to do that, I'm in the All-in-One tab, and I click Capture. And then the crosshairs are going to appear on my screen, and I'm going to move them around. And personally, I like to start at the top left corner of what I'm trying to capture. I'm pressing down my cursor, and I'm moving it and clicking and dragging to capture this window here, and letting go now that I have the area that I want to start capturing. If I was to push this button here, it would take an image of just what's on within these dashed yellow lines, but I want to do the panoramic, so I'll click Panoramic Capture. And when I'm ready to start scrolling, I click the Start button. And I will click and drag my scrolling bar, the scroll bar here, and drag that as far as I want to capture this image. Right. Keep going a little bit farther here. All right, I think I'm going to stop at the bottom here. And once I'm done, I click Stop. So Snagit's going to stitch all of those pieces together to make this long image of the scrolling window, and it will appear in my Snagit Editor. So as you can see, it's a little bit small. The text is small, and if I'm trying to make edits to this, it might be kind of hard to view. So the first thing I'm going to do is use this zoom down here at the bottom. And I like, it's quick and easy. You can either drag the slider, or you can click actual size is one of my favorites to click, so I can see what is the actual size of this capture that I just took. And now it's zoomed in, easier to read, and we're ready to use our tools. So the first tool we are going to cover today is the Grab Text tool. So when I first discovered this, I was like, whoa, what is this magic? I can take a picture of what's on my screen, so this capture, and I can take the text in it and actually edit it and copy it. That's amazing. So the way you can do that is by up here in the toolbar. So actually, I'm going to pause real quick before I show Grab Text and just talk a little bit about the toolbar. So up here are the default tools that are typically available when you first open Snagit. Yours might look a little different. You may have a couple different tools, and that's totally fine. But when you click this More button, you'll see even more tools that are available. And you can even customize your toolbar. So if there's a tool that's your favorite that isn't up at the top, you can click and let's say Callouts, one of my favorite, and drag and drop that. And now it's up on my toolbar for me to use quickly. So there's a couple tips for you. All right, so let's get back to grab text. The first thing that you're going to do is click the selection tool. So in this case, I'm going to click selection, and then I'm going to find the text that I want to grab on this image. So I'm going to move my cursor to that top left, click, and drag to select the text that I want to grab off of this image. And I can even use these handles if, sometimes clicking and dragging is hard to do perfectly the first time. I use a trackpad a lot, so that makes it, tricky sometimes to get that whole area, so that those handles are super helpful. And then I'm going to right click, and you can see the option in my right click menu, grab text, and I just click that. And now it's going to use technology called optical character recognition to turn that image text into text that I can actually change, edit, however I would like. And once I have the text the way I'd like it and want to maybe copy and paste that into a different document or Slack or email, I can click the copy all if I want the whole thing. And then I'm going to close this out and show you how quick and easy it is. I'm going to open a notes document and click Control V, or you could right click and paste. And just like that, I took the text from an image that I captured and turned it into text that I can use all over the place. So Jason or Ryan, do you guys use this, or have you had any favorite uses for the grab text tool?
I have. I can tell you, Chandra, most often than not, when people share an image with me, that's my puppy, that's a PDF, that's a flattened image, I can go in and grab that content and share it with people, even though I don't have the original source file. That's always helpful to me.
Yes.
Yep. Agreed here. I use it kind of the same way you just kind of showed, Chandra, where there's an image like that, grabbing the text, and maybe I'm pasting it in a document that I need to use or share with someone.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a super helpful tool for sure. And like I said, I think it's a little bit of magic. The next tool that I'm going to show you is the Smart Move tool. So sometimes we showed that you could grab the text and copy and paste it, but sometimes you have text on your screen that you might want to update. So let's say this image was for a training materials that you were going to send out to a whole bunch of people. And you've got Abby's name here, and you've got John's name here, and you still want to be able to use this image, but you want to protect that sensitive information. So what you could do is use Smart Move, which is another one of my favorite tools. So the way you do that is it's under the Move tool here up at the top. So click Move, and then click the Smart Move toggle. And again, it's using that optical character recognition to recognize all the objects on the screen. And now, as I move my cursor around the screen, you can see that I can grab these buttons. I can move the submit button around. I could click and delete it if I wanted to. So let's go back to John's name, and I can double click on John's name. Now, it's not going to be the exact font. Snagit tries to match the font as close as possible. If it's a little small or you want to adjust it, this toolbar will appear. You can change the color, which font you're using. Let's say, I want to use Roboto in this case, and I can see I'm missing the J there, so I'm going to go back and select select John's name. There we go. And then I'm going to, let's try 14. Okay, so that's looking better. So you can kind of adjust that until it looks the way that you'd like. And then in this case, instead of John's name, I'm going to change it to Sam Snagit, just to have a generic name on there. So what I like about this versus some of the other ways to eliminate personal identifiable information is that somebody could still come in and see what this page would look like with real information on it, rather than it being, removing it completely or maybe having it all blurred out. Sometimes blur is a great tool and a great resource, but this looks really clean to me, especially if you're trying to mock up what maybe the page would look like and share it with somebody else. So yeah, Smart Move is perfect for those mock-ups as well. Say, this is the old website and somebody's coming in and suggesting some changes. They can easily click around and say, I want this a little more centered, and drag these elements all around the page. And as you can see, it matches up the background from the area that where I moved it from. So it matches that. So just a really great tool, so many great uses. All right, so we've actually covered, let's see, how many tools have we covered so far? We've covered Grab Text, Smart Move, but we actually kind of touched a little on Selection Tool, and I just want to cover a few things on that before we go on to tool number 4. So the things I wanted to cover is that you can select different shapes or a lasso tool here. You can even choose whether you want it to fill in the background or leave the background transparent when you remove something. So I'll show you the difference. So if I use Selection Tool and I say, you know what, I'm going to get rid of this title here. So I'll click, drag, and delete. And it filled it in with the green. But if I had it on transparent and delete, it's going to leave a transparency in the background. So depending on if you want to remove background colors, that can be really helpful to use that transparent option. So I'm going to go back to autofill because that's what I use the most. All right, so before I move on to tool number 4, are there any questions that have come up?
Yep. Just real quickly, May just asked, can you please review where you found Smart Move? Or if yes. Smart Move is something that you want to use a lot, can you show how they can put that on their toolbar so that it's always up there?
Absolutely. So Smart Move is under the Move tool, and it looks like this here with this little arrow. And mine's already at the top. I think it is one of the default tools, but if it's not up there, all you need to do is go to the More menu, Customize, and then find Move and click and drag it up into your toolbar and click Done. And then it should stay up there.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question. This is actually really good from Marcus. Said, can you grab text directly from an image, or do you need to copy the image first and then grab the text?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yep. So I'm thinking his question is around when you're doing your image capture, when you're capturing something on the screen, can you grab text directly from an image, or do you need to copy the image first and then grab the text?
Oh, so once your capture's here, you can grab the text from that. If you want, sometimes I do make copies of the images I capture just to have an original versus the one that I edited. Does that help?
I think so. Is there also an option under, if you go back to the actual capture window for Snagit, if you're going to say you're going to capture that document right there under the image tab, selection, there's a drop down for capture text, I think, in the where it says region.
Yep.
So here you can actually grab text to start. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So if you just wanted, to grab the text out of something on your screen, you could use that option as well.
Okay. All right. I don't think I've used that very much, but I just remembered knowing that it was there just in case people want to try it out.
Absolutely. I totally encourage you to, and that's how I really discover a lot of these tools or what they work best for is just by kind of having a sandbox day, or maybe not a whole day, but, sandbox time where you're just in Snagit kind of clicking around with the different options and trying them out.
Great. Yeah, I have a couple other questions, but I think you might cover them a little bit later. So I'm going to let you keep going and we'll ask these later if needed.
All right. So we are on, I think, tool number 4, which is our call out tool. All right, so we've shown quite a few tools, and they didn't have a ton of options in the tool property, but we're going to cover a few more tools that have a lot of options in this tools property over here that can really let you customize it so much. So let's click on callouts. So when you first use Snagit, most of you will see the theme basic. So basic is going to have these colors here and just some of our standard callout styles. So we have different shapes. We have, once you add a shape, you can do so much to it. So let's walk through this process of using all these different options to customize our callout. So I'm going to choose this, let's say down on our image here, we want to tell someone that maybe we want to replace this section. So I'm going to click on this yellow arrow and I'm going to draw it on my screen. So click and drag. And so it will appear here on my screen, and automatically the cursor, blinking cursor, comes up to allow me to type my message. So I'm going to say replace this section. And I might say, you know what, the text is kind of small. I'm going to click and highlight that. And I again have these options that we had before that we were showing when we were using the Smart Move option, where we can make this larger. So we can play around with this until it looks the way we like it. We can make it bold, all sorts of different options. And then we can go over to the tool properties and customize it even more. So we can decide, you know what, actually that color yellow doesn't quite work. I want this bright. Ooh, that's a little bit bright. So maybe let's try this darker green. Okay, that makes the white text kind of pop a little bit more. We can change the shapes. So I can say, you know what, that arrow wasn't quite the arrow I was hoping to use. I want it a little more straight like this one here. And then shadows. So we actually did a survey on whether people like shadows or they don't like shadows. And we got almost about a 50-50 split. So depending on how much you love shadows or not, you can choose that over here. So if I don't want a shadow, I just uncheck that box. But I can also check the box in different directions to add shadows if I change my mind. Then again, we have those same options that we had when we were clicked on our text for the font and font size. And there's even advanced where we can choose alignment, opacity, make it kind of lighter. In this case, I want people to see it, so I'm going to put it back to 100%. So many options and ways to customize your call out. If you decide, you know what, I really like this green arrow and I think I'm going to use it again, one of the tips, another tool available, is to designate this as a quick style so that every time you go into the callouts, you'll see this green arrow. So I click this plus button. And now if I want to keep adding more of that style arrow, I can do that without having to go through all the tool properties and customize it every time I want to use a similar arrow. So another really helpful way to speed up your processes.
Yep, I love that. And this actually kind of goes along with a question that LaDonna asked. Can I ask you that now?
Sure.
She said, can you tell us how to turn off the shadow as a default?
I can.
And okay.
Well, so the way I would do that is by themes. And that was actually a great segue. Actually, one more thing I wanted to share before I get into themes, just so you know, if you see this green dot, that means you can rotate the arrow too. So if you haven't used that before, just wanted to let you know that is available too. All right, so let's talk about themes. So as I mentioned, there's always the basic theme available within Snagit. But sometimes you want to use your own favorite colors or your company's colors. So I'm going to show you how to build a theme in Snagit, and you can even decide whether you want shadows to appear all the time or not. I'll click on this. Fidelity Holdings was the name of this company's website that we took. And we just happen to have a Fidelity Holdings style guide where it has their website colors available. So to create a theme, I will click on the drop down arrow, and you can actually get to themes in quite a few of our tools. You can get to them in shapes, callouts, text. So there's quite a few places whenever you see themes is where you can build a new theme. You'll click on the drop down arrow and go to new theme. And here the theme manager window will appear. So first thing is we'll give it a name. So we'll just give it that Fidelity Holdings. And we will now create our theme. So the first thing that you can do after you create the name is to add, you can add up to 8 colors. In this case, we only have 4 colors for our company theme. So I will click this drop down and I have options. I can select from the colors that are already there. I can type in a hex code. So if I had this hex code over here, I could type it in there. But my favorite way to do it is with the eyedropper. So you click the eyedropper and you move it over to the color that is on the screen here, click. And just like that, it added that green color. So now I'm going to keep doing that for the other 4 or the other 3 colors. And just like that, I have the colors of my theme, and I can even capture things that are not even in Snagit. So if I had Snagit open and I just went to the website here and wanted to grab it. So maybe you work for a school and they don't have a color branding guide available, but they have your school website. You can just click and that arrow again, eyedropper, hover over your school colors, click, and it appears right here in your theme. I'm going to close that out since we have 2 of that green color and go back to my editor here. All right. So now I've got my colors. I can click this tab here and choose a font. So if there is a font that you use regularly, you can choose that. And now anytime you pull up any tools that have text in them, you will have that font applied automatically. So you don't have to keep doing that same formatting over and over. And here's the shadow button here. So whether you're team shadow or team no shadow, you can use this checkbox to check that off and on. So I'm going to go off since we had a question about how to keep them off so that I can show you. Now all these tools do not have a shadow on them. So if that's what you prefer, there you go. Now, if you added 1 arrow and you said, you know what, this time I do want this particular one to have a shadow, no worries. You can still click it in the tool property and customize that particular arrow and have a shadow still. All right.
Awesome. Can I ask you some theme questions?
Absolutely.
All right. A lot of people are asking, can you share themes with others, like on your team, or can you export them, import them, things like that?
Absolutely, you can. So you would click the drop-down arrow and go to the theme you want to share and click the gear icon and click export. And that is going to, so this is actually going to give you a little warning window if you have a font in there that is not something that is pretty standard with your computer, just to make sure like, hey, do you have a copyright for this? And you can say export if you do and cancel if you don't. So you export that, and then it's going to allow you to save it as a Snagit theme file. And then if someone on your team has Snagit, they can open up that. All they have to do is double click, or they can import these. Is that a double click, or is that, I think you may have to go up to this theme and import, and then it will allow you to select that particular Snagit theme file and bring that in.
Awesome. Perfect for if you're working with multiple people on a team and you want to make sure you're using the same colors. This is a great way to have somebody create it and then share it so everybody's using the same colors, same fonts and everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. Another theme question. Christopher asked, when you create a theme, do you have to create it for each tool, like for callouts, text, stuff like that? Or is once you create it, can you find it under all of the tools that use themes?
Yes, you can find it under any tool that uses themes. So if I click on the arrows, you can see that it applied my theme to the arrows. And if I wanted to go, back or change it, I can. But yep, as long as, once you create that theme, it goes across all of the tools.
Awesome. And one more thing while I'm thinking of it, I think
Sure.
Alfred or somebody earlier said about having labels underneath the tool names up there. And I just figured this out. I didn't realize if you right click up there beside the tools, you can have the option for icon and text or just icon. So I forgot about that option.
Yeah, I think that so for us, we create a lot of tutorials and they are in different languages. So I, as a default, often have that turned off. So that is a great tip. And I'm glad you mentioned it, especially as we're talking about all these tools. For you to be able to see the names underneath each tool is really helpful.
Nice. Thank you.
Right. And Jason, did you have anything you wanted to add on some of the tools that we've covered so far and how you like to use them?
Oh, actually, everything you've shown is pretty much how I use it. It's just exciting to see exposure to these tools and maybe how you can use them together, that you're not limited to just one tool at a time. You can use multiple tools across a singular image. And I think that'll become more and more apparent as you go further along.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about another tool. The next one we're going to cover is the step tool. So this is great for those of you creating how-to guides or training materials. Maybe you're sending, so let's say I had this website here and let's pretend it's more like educational. And one of the common use cases I know I've seen are teachers who need to send something to their students or the parents on where do I go to log in and sign up for something. So let's pretend that's what we're doing today with this image here. So with the step tool, so that's going to be probably under your more options, unless it's one of your favorites and you've already customized your toolbar and added it up there. So I'll go down to step tool and I can select the color that I would like my steps to be. So in this case, let's try the green at first and see how that goes. And I have different styles I can select from as well. So I can do numbers, letters. All right, so we'll pick this green circle to start with. And let's say I want to let people know they have to first put the first, last name, email, and what they're interested in. And then log in is the number 5, 5th step there. All right, so now that those are on my screen, so it's great because it automatically, I just click, 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 it advances it for me. So you can see I have, if you can see, it's real tiny, but it's showing me a number 6 to let me know that's going to be the next number that comes up. But if I decide, you know what, I showed them those 5 steps, but now I want to show them 3 new steps. I don't want it to be 6, 7, 8. I want it to be 1, 2, and 3. So to do that, I can right click and say restart sequence. And then I click and it now goes back to that 1, 2, 3 order. If I decide, you know what, this color is a little bit too similar to, oops, delete that there. This color, I'm going to click my move tool here and it's a little too similar to the what's on the actual website and I want it to stand out a little bit more. I clicked and dragged to select those 3 step tools. And then I can use these properties to kind of customize that a little bit more. So I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to make it orange because that'll pop on my screen against this green. And I can change the text color. So if I wanted to change that from like white to like a darker color, I can do that. Even the shapes. So maybe I want it to be square. And add those shadows in or take them out, depending on what your preference is. And now I have these customized steps here. All right. So I think that was pretty much most of how steps work and the options that you have. And you can, I don't know if I mentioned, you can also change those to letters too. So if you'd rather have it A, B, C instead of 1, 2, 3, you can do that through this type area too. Okay, so I talked a little bit about that personal identifiable information. So in this case, we replaced it, but sometimes maybe you do just want to blur it real fast. You don't need to get real fancy. So you can click and we'll show you the next tool, which is the blur tool. So click on blur and then bring your cursor over to the section you want to blur out, click and drag that over your screen. And now that sensitive information is covered up and I can share this out with other people and know that that information is safe. You can click and decide, you know what, I wanted a different style of a blur. So we have kind of a more pixelated option, or maybe I do want to still show there's something here. So I'm going to do a little bit of a lighter blur. So those are some options. And you can adjust the intensity of the blur with the slider tool here. Now, here's a tip though. If you are someone who works with personal identifiable information often and you want to send out things that you've done in Snagit, make sure to save this as something other than a Snagit capture file. Don't send, like if I was a teacher and I did this and I covered up the sensitive information, I'm going to send it to a parent. Don't send them the Snagit capture file. Send them like a PNG or a PDF or a JPEG. The reason I say that is because if someone does have Snagit themselves and you send them a Snagit capture file, they can make edits to that and they can just move your blur and still see that personal information. All right, so any questions before we get into the next step?
Yes, Chandra, thank you. Thank you for pausing right there. Good timing. There have been a couple people when you were showing the step tool. And every time I say it too fast, I always think I'm saying step stool, but it's step tool. Are saying, can you change the default or starting size of the step tool callouts? So what are your thoughts there? And
yes, you can. So to start with, they are going to be the standard size. But if I decided, you know what, I want to have a style that is a little bit larger and use that over and over, what I would recommend doing is, you know, start with one and resize it. And then, you know what, actually, I thought we could add it as a quick style. Ryan, do you have a way that you're able to do that? It's not something that I have done personally.
Right. Yeah, that is a really good question. And I think my only workaround is I create the first one like you just did and resize it the way I want it. And then what should happen is when you click the next one, it should keep that same size. But I don't know if there's a way of changing like the original default.
Yeah, so good tip. So do step one, make it larger, and then it is, you know, when you're clicking, you can, it maintains that larger size as you do the sequence.
Yep, that was a great question from.
Great question.
I know there were several people that had asked that, so
something to definitely also share with our team. Maybe we could, you know, ask them to make that so that we can set that as a default.
Yeah, someone else, I mean, I've seen this one as well. Is there a quick way to align the steps rather than just clicking and dragging them?
And I don't think there is for that, but that's another great suggestion.
Yep, agreed.
All right. So the next one that I'm going to use is the stamped tool. So if you click on stamps up at the top, or if yours is under the more option, you can see that we have a search bar, and you can just, you know, if you have a certain stamp that you know you're looking for, you can use the search bar, or you can kind of peruse. We have quite a few free stamps that are already preloaded into Snagit and use those. I know I've downloaded a few. We have an asset store, so if you don't see what you're looking for and you want more, you can click this download more button, and it will take you to our TechSmith asset store where you can find some additional stamps to download. So if you do click your smileys and people and you're like, you know what, Chandra, I don't have those. Maybe it's because I have downloaded some additional from the store already. But there are quite a few to choose from already preloaded into Snagit. So let's say I know that I'm going to share this with somebody, but I want to kind of stamp it as confidential. So I will type in confidential, and sure enough, we've got a stamp for that. I click it, and it has this little stamp tool right over my image, and I just click where I want that stamp to go. Now in this case, I want to make it a little bit bigger, so I am going to select it, and I'm going to drag that and make it larger, and maybe to make it have that stamp effect, kind of tilt it and then send it to someone. If I want them to see the image behind it a little bit better, I could use the opacity and kind of lighten that up, almost kind of like a watermark. So there's different options that are available in our stamps. And if you have some of your own images, so maybe you have a logo, a company logo that you like to use, or your signature that you want to add easily to your images, the way you can do that is by going to Organize Stamps. And here are some stamps I've added. So I added our Snagit stamp. So you can do Add Stamp here, and add if you have an image of your logo or your signature, and add that and create your own stamps. All right. That was most of that for stamps. So we've only got, we've got 2 more tools to get to our 10 tools that we wanted to cover today. So the next one that I wanted to show is the Simplify tool. And I discovered this when I first started working at TechSmith here. And I was like, wow, I wish I would have had this tool back when I was creating lots of training and policy and procedures, because it does such a great job at helping your viewer focus on what you want them to see on your screen. So let me show you rather than talk about it so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is click the More button and then click Simplify. And what Simplify does is it allows you to create a cover. You can cover up the text or images with these squares, rectangles, all sorts of shapes. And what it does is it has a few benefits. One is that when you see an image with these shapes on them, it's easy to call attention to where there is text remaining. The other is that if you're somebody like us who creates a lot of content that is then translated into other languages, it also can help a lot with translation or localization. So, but instead of manually putting all those squares on this image, there's this really cool button here up at the top right corner that saves you a ton of time. So I'm going to just take my little rectangles off here and click the Auto Simplify button. And within seconds, it's made this image into a simplified image that I can use in, like I mentioned, for training, or maybe you've seen these on your websites when you've seen loading bars. A lot of times I've seen them become available more and more out in the wild. So there's a few things with Simplify, though, I want to show you before we just leave it like this. So if I saw this image, I might still not quite know what am I supposed to be looking at. So what I typically do is click the Show Original. And what that does is it lightens up the areas that are covered so I can see what's underneath them. And I'm going to delete and uncover a few things so that in this case, let's say I'm really trying to get somebody to click on the dashboard button on the left. So I'm going to click and let them know, this is the dashboard we're looking at, and this is what I want them to click on here in the top left. And when I uncheck Show Original, this is what it actually looks like. So now, as I mentioned, if I'm trying to draw users' attention to click this dashboard, it's the only thing with text uncovered, and it really kind of draws their eye to that rather than have all the other busy things that are happening on the screen. Let's see. So let's go through some of this here on the right. So if you run the Auto Simplify and it doesn't cover things just the way you like it, play around with this slider tool and it will either pick up more or less detail on your image. this works really well with websites, but I will tell you that if you have a picture in your image, you may see some, it might not be perfect. So play around with this detail slider and you should be able to get close to what you are hoping for. It also automatically detects the colors that are on your screen, which I think is pretty amazing. So I already have this custom color palette ready to go that I can use these rectangles that match up with the colors that are in my image here. And if you decide, what, I want to use my own color palette, you can click and choose from these different options or create your own. The quick styles, again, let's say like I want to show that there's an avatar in this corner here, so I can click, let's delete and draw my own. Oops, I must not have clicked that shape well enough. Let me click that and draw it over this corner here. Kind of drag and put that there. So again, there's a lot of different, if there's an image, or if you want to put a cursor on here and say, this is where I want you to click, you can do that. So a lot of really great tools here. Just within this one simplify tool, you could spend a lot of time customizing your image. So Ryan, any questions on Simplify?
Oh man, there's probably some, but I'm still kind of catching up with some other ones.
Yeah, no worries.
So, apologize.
No worries.
There's a feature that someone was asking about with the aligning earlier, with aligning like stamps and things like that.
Yeah.
Underneath the image menu up at the top of the editor, there is a feature called canvas snapping. And that's usually, I think it might be on by default. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. But if it's not, you can check that. And then when you like move those, you should see these, those vertical and horizontal lines to help kind of align things. So that's something that could be possibly looked at for an option there.
Looks like because I'm in the still in the other tool, it's adding little cursors all over here. Let me try to do just the move tool and move these things around. So move those around. The canvas snapping helps a ton with being able to align items on your screen. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you for that. A couple other quick questions here. One of them was earlier from Steve saying, how do you change the direction of the arrow? I think you were drawing an arrow on one of the first captures. And when, so there, if it's going to the right, how can you show how to rotate that? Yeah,
so you can click this green button here, click and drag that and rotate your arrow into different directions.
Got it. So so there you should see that little green circle on the shapes and stuff that you put on there that allow you to do that free rotate. Another one, Adrian says, is there a watermark feature in Snagit? Or if you wanted to watermark a document, what would be the steps you would use to do that?
Yes, I would definitely I would use the stamp tool. Is there a different tool that you would use, Ryan, or would you use stamp as well?
I would probably use stamp. I was just testing this earlier. You can do there's like a made with Snagit stamp up there. If I just did a search for it, which was kind of cool, but you could obviously bring in any type of like their logo or something like that.
Yeah. So if I kind of if I had this image and I'm like, oh, this is actually like a Snagit image. I don't want, I want to kind of put a little watermark on. So you can just click and add. So let me try that one more time just to show you. So right now I've already still have it on 33% opacity. So normally it'll be on 100. So I'll click on the Snagit icon and now my stamp tool is activated with that Snagit stamp. Then I click and it appears. And then if I want that watermark, I might want to take the shadow off and then kind of reduce that opacity and put that on. So now someone can't go and share this image and like, hey, I made this without, that watermark on there.
Right. Yep. And you can obviously put that anywhere if you wanted to put it down in a corner someplace or wherever you wanted. Yep. So it's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I think you can keep going, or if you have other things to show, and I'll try to organize some more questions here for you.
No problem. So I actually just have one more tool out of all the tools. There are even more available in Snagit for sure. So feel free, like I mentioned, to have a little bit of time just playing around with them and exploring. But the last one that I wanted to share with you is, we've talked a lot about, designing our own styles. So let's say we have this arrow and we point it, and it's, this one's a little bit thin. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to change the width of it. And I want to use this style arrow a bunch. So we did that where we added a quick style. But another way to use it frequently is by making it a favorite. So the favorites tool is our last one for today. And so to do that, all you have to do, and it doesn't have to be one you made a custom style. It could be just one that you're like, it's already in Snagit. I really like this dotted arrow a lot. I'm going to click the yellow star. So I'm going to click a bunch. These two are my favorites out of my arrows. And now up at the top, you see a favorites starred. And you can see where I've already created several favorites that I can quickly get to and apply. And so you don't have to jump around to callouts and all the different tools. If you have a whole bunch of favorites and you just want to keep favorites open and just keep applying, click and adding them to your image, they're right here for you to use. So let's kind of recap the 10 tools that we talked about today. We might have even gone over and covered a few little more tidbits along the way too. But we've got our selection tool that we use to select areas of our screen and edit and grab text and delete them. We had grab text. We have smart move right under that move tool that allowed us to change and move objects in our image. We had callouts. So if you want to draw attention to anything on your screen, or you can use callouts. And we had themes. So if you have your favorite theme, favorite colors, organization colors, school colors, you can create a theme and not have to redo and add those colors every time. We had our step tool, which was under here where we could add those 1, 2, 3. We had our blur tool to cover those sensitive information. Stamp was number 8. Number 9 was simplify. And our number 10 was favorites. So 10 tools today. And I hope that you found something new and you're excited to go try these out and that it helps you in however you're using Snagit. So I'm going to take a few more questions here and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. We have a couple people that have just won the day, I think.
Yes.
So I did not realize this was possible. So Wendy, and I can't remember who else, mentioned that if we go back to or you have some stamps right there for aligning them. If you actually multi-select them, those 4, 5, and 6, those numbers,
Yep.
you can hold down the shift key or something and hold all of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple ways you could do this. You can right click now on one of them and go down to arrange, over to align, and then choose left, right, center, and it will align them accordingly.
Nice.
Yeah, I did not realize that. And you can also get to instead of right clicking with them selected, you can get to them from under the image tab, I believe, up at the top, or the image menu.
Okay.
There's an arrange option. So cool.
Yeah,
thank you, Wendy, and others who put that in the chat.
Yeah, one thing I love about doing these, is we use Snagit, and I honestly get to learn new things too. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes. Couple more questions if you don't mind. Francine asked, can you edit or update a style that you created? Or is it a one and done? Or can you always go back and maybe change something?
All right, so we had this style here. And if we make it, let's say, gray instead, it will add a new style available, and we could click and make that a quick style. So the styles, you can visually edit them, but it's not going to like save it, I believe, to, so if I clicked out and I added this, oops, if I tried to add a new arrow with that style, sorry, I'm having arrow, click and draw. Yeah. I think it would just create a new style by changing this, like color, like if I change it out to gray that I could save. Mm-hmm.
And if you create one and you change your mind, like, months down the road, you're like, I don't need that one anymore. How do you get rid of ones that you've done?
Yep. So you just right click on the one that you don't want anymore and delete quick styles, or you can remove them from favorites as well.
Gotcha. Perfect. There have been a couple requests, people asking if you could show the magic wand selection tool.
Okay. Yes. So let me clean this image up a little bit. All right. And let's try the magic wand tool. So click more and magic wand and excuse me. So you can use the slider and it will help with kind of like the details that we mentioned. If you use the magic wand and it doesn't quite pick up what you were hoping, you can use the less or more and it will help to get that closer to what you're trying to capture. So in this case, let's say I want to capture this, or I want to select this bar here. So I clicked with my magic wand and it detected based on like the color contrast there that it already selected that whole area. So rather than me, the other option was, if I tried to get a selection tool and get this just right, well, that's going to be tricky, but it definitely can save me time by using that magic wand and clicking and see it detected that blue color there. So yeah. Or
awesome.
It can select even like anytime that color appears on your screen too. So with this global color selection option.
All right, very good. Thank you. I've seen some people mentioning some things that they've learned, and also it just made me think of also earlier when we right click on things, it gives you that context menu. There's a lot of times, depending on where you are inside the editor, where you right click is going to give you a different menu. So I always like to think of, if you're not sure what to do, just right click somewhere. Maybe it'll give you the answer that you're looking for. Another thing, yes, Jay just said, right click is your friend. So I totally agree. Lawrence had asked earlier, and I wanted to mention this, down in your capture tray, is there a way to capture multiple images and then maybe combine them into one? So maybe you're taking multiple screenshots. So like if you wanted to, I don't know if you want how you want to demo this, but or if it's possible, can you drag and drop something on top of and combine images that way?
Yes, you can. So my image is going to look a little funky because I don't have a specific one that I would have done this with. But if let's say I want to add this Fidelity Holdings image on top of this dashboard image. So I'd start on the dashboard and then I can just click and drag and it brings the Fidelity Holdings and combines those two images. And then, can kind of play around with that and how you want that located in your image.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I know times I've also just started from scratch. If you go up to like the file menu and do like a file new, a new image, and then you can kind of set your own canvas to whatever sizes you want with a different, if you wanted to do a transparent background or a white or what different color. And then I would basically start with that, and you can even resize it there. And then you can drag and kind of mock up things. If you wanted to kind of design a document or something like that, or a handout, you can just then drag your images and so forth and resize, reposition, and you kind of like create something from scratch.
Yep, definitely.
So awesome. Okay. Well, I know there have been lots of questions coming in, and I know our group has been frantically trying to answer as many as possible, but we are running near our time limit. So if you don't mind, Chandra, unless you had anything else to show.
I think that was it. That I could definitely keep sharing. There are so many great tools available, but I really hope that these 10 will at least get you started and give you something new to try out.
Exactly. You did a great job. So thank you very much for sharing your expertise today. So what Chandra has on the screen here, we just wanted to mention this. On October 5th, our marketing team is hosting a Level Up online event, and you can go to techsmith.com/level up, and you can actually register. It's a free event. I believe it's a half a day, and you can attend many different sessions through Zoom, and just check out the schedule and see if it's something that you might want to attend. And it's a free event on October 5th. And finally, we have just a couple reminders. You will get a recording of this session tomorrow sent to you in an email. There'll be some links, as you see here, to some helpful resources that you can check out. And also, when you're leaving the session today, you're going to get prompted with a short survey. It should take you a minute or less, and we really appreciate any feedback that you can provide us to help us improve. What can we do better? What types of sessions would you like us to see offering you? And so I really appreciate you giving up an hour of your day to be with us and learn about Snagit. Check out our other webinars if you are interested in Camtasia, Audiate, and other things. So, Chandra, any last words before we let them go?
Just thank you so much for attending today, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.